Hello, welcome to this session. My name is Efradius Salmon Mejage from Edukea Tanzania. I'm a History 2 teacher advanced level. So welcome to proceed with our topic, which is, so let's see to the world peace after the Second World War. On the last session we ended on the effects of Cold War. So now we are going to see the thaw or the entente between the Eastern and the Western blocs after 1953. What is the meaning of a thaw? A thaw refers to the situation in which the relations between the two hostile countries, namely USA and USSR or Russia, become friendly. The mean thaw is when the two hostile countries become friendship again or friendly again. And after 1953, the relation between the Soviet Union and the USA had improved. However, in October 1963, the relation was very worse following the Cuban missiles installation by the USSR. After 1953, the relation between the USSR and the USA become increased. But soon after the 1962, after the Cuban missile installation by the USSR, the friendship or the relation become worse following by that action. So then after the taking power by USSR government under the Nikita Khrushchev, the Cuban missile was withdrawn by that president of USSR, Nikita Khrushchev, and led to the continuation of thaw between Eastern and Western blocs until when the hostile or relation between USA and the USSR become frozen again in 1918s. So let us see the reasons for the thaw between the Eastern and the Western blocs after 1953. The first cause or reason was the death of Joseph Stalin. The death of Joseph Stalin led to the thaw between Eastern and the Western blocs. In which sense? Joseph Stalin was so aggressive and so against with the capitalist ideology or against the USA or Western bloc. So after his death, other presidents like Nikita Khrushchev and Malenkov were the leaders or presidents who decided to make friendship or to return the friendship between the USSR and the USA, and that marked the thaw between the Eastern and the Western blocs after 1953. Another reason was public pressure factor. It means that the public or the people or majority of USA decided or forced the existing government that the USSR is not bad as the other leaders like Joseph Michael and Harry Truman was pronouncing about USSR. So they decided that and forcing the government to make or to restore the friendship between USA and the USSR. So in that case, that led to the thaw between the Eastern and the Western blocs after 1953. But another reason was the Sino or Sino-Soviet conflicts. This was the conflict which was between China and the USSR or Russia. That lasted from 1916. So this was due to the suspicion by China to Soviet or Russian or Soviet Union that Russia was assisted the anti-communist government or anti-communist movement of India during the conflicts of boundary between China and India. So that China suspected USSR or Russia that was supporting the Indians during the conflict boundaries or boundary conflicts at that time. So this led to the Chinese to cooperate with USA, and that action led to fear or the fear into the USSR, so that decided to cool down and not to show any against or reaction towards the Chinese, and that led to the though between the Eastern and the Western blocs after 1953. Another was the need to reduce the nuclear war. It means that during the Cold War there was mass production of nuclear weapons, so that every bloc can defend herself against the enemy side or other side. So they decided that these blocs were fearing that if they will continue to produce deadly weapons or nuclear weapons, they will lead to the occurrence of nuclear war, which will lead to the mass destructive and mass killing of people in the world. So they needed to reduce the nuclear war or to combat the expected occurrence of nuclear war was led to the war between the Eastern and the Western blocs after 1953. Another was the role played by USA President Eisenhower in 1954. This was the USA President who decided to pronounce that and to declare that USA are not enmity with USSR. So negotiated with USSR President to restore the friendship which were existing by that time. So these two presidents, especially US President Eisenhower, in that year declared that USA and USSR have had the good relation, and that led to the war between the Eastern and Western blocs after 1953. Another cause or reason was establishment of hotline in 1962. This was direct communication which were aimed to bring the communication between the USA White House and the Moscow State House after the installation of Cuban missiles in 1962, and that Cuban missile was withdrawn by the Nikita Khrushchev, and that led to due to the establishment of hotline in 1962 led to the war between the Eastern and the Western blocs after 1953. And the last one but not least, they needed to reduce overgrowing costs on the arms race. It means that another reason for the war between Eastern and the Western blocs after 1953 it was to reduce the overgrowing cost on the arms race. It means that in production of nuclear weapons were costing highly in the government expenditure. So those two governments from USA and USSR decided to reduce the production of nuclear weapons or arms race in order to reduce the costs on respective country. So that led to the war between the Eastern and the Western blocs. So these were the reasons for war between the Eastern and the Western blocs after 1953. After looking the war After looking the reasons for the thaw between Eastern and Western blocs after 1953, let us see the reasons why a thawing of Cold War between Eastern and Western blocs was frozen again in 1918s. The first one, or the first reason, was occurrence of Iranian Revolution in 1979. Occurrence of Iranian Revolution, and this was the revolution which took place in Iran under the anti-communist and Islamic group or movement under Ayatollah Khomeini, and led to the overthrowing of the existing government under Mohammad Reza Shah in 1979, and this led to it angered the USSR that the existing government was overthrown by the support of USA, and that led to the frozen again of Cold War between the Eastern and the Western blocs after in 1918s. Another was the increase of nuclear arms race. This was the action where those two blocs were competing in the production of nuclear weapons. For example, USSR produced the intercontinental ballistic missiles, and in 1957 the USA replied in the response by producing the intermediate range ballistic missiles, which led to the production of nuclear and atomic bombs, which were dropped in Nagasaki and Hiroshima in Japan. So this led to the frozen again of Cold War between Eastern and Western blocs in 1918s. Another reason was civil wars in Angola, Nicaragua, and Salvador. These were civil wars which were taking place in those areas, and each side, for example, in Angola, there were two sides, whereby one side was supported by USSR and another side was supported by USA. For example, Agustin Neto, as the leader of existing government, was supported by USSR, or the communist bloc, and their enemies, or the group which were wanted to overthrow the existing government under Jonas Savimbi, was supported by the USA. So you can see how those civil wars was under the Cold War supporters of USA and USSR. Even in Nicaragua, USA supported supported the guerrilla war, or guerrilla military and armies by USA to overthrow the existing government, which was supported by USSR. So you can see how those USA and USSR were supporting those civil wars, and led to the Cold War to frozen again in 1918s. But another was the question of Los Angeles and Moscow Olympic boycott in 1918 and 1984. This was the boycott, or Olympic boycotts, which were conducted in two nations. In USSR, when the government of Russia was preparing the Olympic champions in Moscow in 1918, and the USA Olympic team was disagreed or reacted to compete or to join the competition, and the same was did by USSR when USA when USA prepared that Olympic champions in 1984, 4 years later. So that led to USSR to do the same as the USA did in the previous 4 years. So that led to the frozen again of Cold War between the Eastern and the Western blocs in 1980s. So another was the rise of Ronald Reagan in 1981. This was the US president who came up with the public enmity and declared that the USSR or Russia was the evil empire which was against the capitalists. So that president declared the enmity between USA and the USSR, and that led to anger in USSR and led to the flooding again of Cold War between Eastern Bloc and Western Bloc in 1980s. And the last one, or the last reason, was the question of human rights. For example, between 1977 and 1981, Jimmy Carter led the USA and declared that communism is against human rights. And that declaration angered USSR and led to the Cold War frozen again in 1980. So these were the reasons for why a thawing of Cold War between Eastern and Western blocs was frozen again in 1980s. After looking the reasons for why thawing between Eastern and Western blocs frozen again after 1980s, so let us see how did Warsaw Pact NATO intensified Cold War. These were the military alliances which was formed by two blocs. So let us see their definitions and their periodization when they were formed. What is North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO? Is an intergovernmental military alliance signed on 4th April 1949 aimed at defending the member states when attacked by their enemies. It means that this was an intergovernmental military alliance which was signed in 4th April 1949, and the USA and allies with the aim of defending each other when they were attacked by their enemies. And on the return, on the response, USSR with the allies formed the military defense treaty among the Soviet Union and other 7 Soviet satellite states in Central and Eastern Europe. It means that in 1955, the Soviet Union and other 7 Soviet satellite states in Central and Eastern Europe decided to form the military alliance which come up as the response towards NATO in 1955. So these were the military alliances which were formed in the response or with the aim of defending each other when their enemies are attacking the member states. So this, let us see an exercise which I have given. It comprises one question, which is assess the reasons for the thaw between Eastern and Western blocs after 1953. So until there, this is the end of our lesson. So thank you for watching me and listening me to attentively. Welcome in another lesson.
tracks